Hello everyone, this is Highlander from MTG Cardsmith doing another custom Magic the Gathering card review, and today we're doing a review for TGBC for a set Gakuren. And what do we got here? We got Hellmaru, Corrupted Fox. He's gonna eat this lady, or guy, or whatever. And it's a pretty scary looking fox, not gonna lie. Okay, so we got a 9 mana creature here, 7 and double green. For a legendary Honkai creature fox, again, we don't really... I don't know why some things are Honkai and some things aren't. It's not particularly clear why that needs to be a super type, but okay. And we've got protection from vehicles and haste. Protection from vehicles, huh? Interesting. If red was used to cast Hellmaru, Hellmaru deals 7 damage to target creature and is a red and green legendary Honkai Fox creature. See, even here you've got it as a subtype. Right? I mean, I don't... Here's the thing, is like... You got to have a really good reason to add a new super type in Magic, right? Have I talked about this before? I may have. I mean, look, Magic's got its super types figured out, right? I mean, it's got enchantments, creatures, it's got legendaries, it's got instant sorceries, blah blah blah, right? I mean, is there another super type we need in Magic? Not really. I mean, well, when was the last time they added a super type? Let's see. Let me see if I can find this out. MTG last added super type. World? No, that can't be right. Okay, let's look at the super types. Let's see if they have official super types. Okay. Where'd it go? Official super types. Basic, legendary, ongoing, that's for schemes, snow, and world. Okay. So the last time, okay, here's not official. Elite and host. Okay, so these are just kind of nonsense. So, I mean, they haven't added a super type in a long time. I guess the last one was Snow, which came out in Ice Age, or was it before that? Which one came first, Ice Age or Cold Snap? Ice Age, right? Ice Age. Ice Age came out in 1995. Let's see. Basic Legendary, obviously. Okay, Legendary I think was Legends, right? Which, let's see. Let me just... Legends. Yeah, from Legends. Whatever. I'm not gonna spend hours trying to figure this out. Anyway, you can see they don't really add super types very often, and the super types that they do have are from really old sets, right? I mean, yeah, they use snow in the newer sets, but that's because there's a precedent for that. The thing is, you really need a good reason to add a super type, and this can be easily a subtype, right? A Honkai Fox or whatever. Yeah, I mean, that's just kind of the way it is. I mean, you can make instants and sorceries. You can add subtypes of those, right? They have arcane instant sorceries. So I think this belongs as a subtype in short. There's not really a reason to make this a super type, especially because it adds confusion. Like me, I'm like, what does this mean that it's a Honkai creature? Well, the only thing it means is that some cards care about Honkai creatures or stuff, right? And that's always taken care of in the subtypes, right? Other elves you control get +1/+1. They're not legendary elf creatures. They're not elf creatures. They're creature elf, right? Anyway, so yeah. So enough talk about that. Anyway, protection from vehicles is an odd one. Whenever another red creature you control attacks, Hellmaru deals 1 damage to target creature and opponent controls. Okay, so This is a big fat haster guy, which is just fine. I mean, it's incredibly expensive. So there are I see a couple issues with this card, and I see a couple of things that I think could sort of smoothen this card out. Again, smooth. There I go saying smoothen. I don't think that's a word. To smooth out this card's design. So the main issue I see here is if red was used to cast Hellmaru, Hellmaru deals 7 damage to target creature and is a red and green legendary Honkai Fox creature. This doesn't tell you when Hellmaru deals the 7 damage, right? It doesn't say when Hellmaru enters the battlefield, if red was paid to cast it, it deals 7 damage. Or it doesn't say when you cast Hellmaru, if red was spent, Hellmaru deals 7 damage, right? There's nothing here that tells you the timing of this ability, which is an issue. Most of the time, this would be an enter the battlefield effect, so I suggest you probably go with something like that. But this sort of doesn't really work in the rule the way it's worded right now. It doesn't really work in the rules of Magic. We got a couple formatting issues. Again, a shame. You had some really nicely formatted cards before. Haste here does not need to be capitalized. Obviously, this is an issue, like I mentioned. Yeah, I think other than that, it's probably okay. Okay, now as far as the design goes, so here, I think you can easily simplify this card quite a bit by making this card, instead of making this a 7 green, and then if you spend red, it deals 7 damage to target creature and is a red and green legendary Honkai Fox creature. Listen, you're not playing this card if you're not playing red, right? I mean, this thing comes in and deals 7 damage to a creature. That's bonkers, right? So, and it has haste, and it cares about other red creatures. I suggest just make this card 6 red, green. Just require that red, and then you don't need this extra little clause here. You don't need to turn him into a red and green legendary fox because he would already be a red and green legendary fox, right? And then all you have to say here is when Hellmaru enters the battlefield, it deals 7 damage to target creature, right? I also suggest that you change the wording. Instead of saying deals 7 damage to target creature, I suggest that you change the wording to you may deal 7 damage, or deals. Probably the best way to do it is to say deals 7 damage to target creature and opponent controls. I think that's probably the best formatting here, because the way it works right now, you have to deal the 7 damage, right? You have to. It doesn't say it's not a may. So that means that if you cast this and they don't have any creatures in play, you have to target one of your own creatures. So like best case scenario, you hit Hellmaru himself and he now is like a 9/2 and they can kill it with a burn spell or something, right? So I do suggest that you make this only target opponent's creatures. That way it is still required, but if there's no creature on the opponent's side, it obviously doesn't do anything. So So I think doing going back to the red-green thing, I think doing that makes the card a lot less wordy, and it just it's essentially the same card, really, right? I mean, yes, okay. Right now there are some scenarios where you can play this without the red for a 9/9 haste protection from vehicles with this text here, but let's be honest. If you're playing this card and you're trying to play this, if you're playing this card, you're playing it because of this deal 7, right? A 9/9 haste for 9 is not that good, right? I mean, 9 mana is a lot. It's not even good as a reanimated card generally. Once you add the 7 damage here, it becomes good, right? So just make this a red-green card. It'll make the card a lot simpler. And don't get it twisted. Simpler is better. Okay? Simpler is always better. Always. Okay, I mean that's a strong statement. I I could be wrong. I challenge others to find situations where simpler is not better. I think simpler is often, if not always, better. At the very least, it's almost all the time better. I'll go with that. So anyway. And then there's this third line here. Whenever another red creature you control attacks, Hellmaru deals 1 damage to target creature an opponent controls. Okay. I mean, it's a fine ability. It's like kind of a weird thing to have on such a gigantic creature. Like, this is more something that, I don't know. It feels a little tacked on, I guess is what I'm saying. Like, why does this big fox make other red creatures, like, hit other things when red creatures attack? It's kind like, it's certainly not a minor ability, but it seems minor on a 9-mana 9/9 in a sense. And it's like, if you have that many red creatures on board, you're probably, I guess not necessarily. You could be at the thing is, like, you could be at like board parity, but that's pretty uncommon these days. Like, Magic's kind of gotten to a point where you don't really find yourself in a lot of situations where you're at a board stall and you're just top decking trying to find something to break the board stall. That's old Magic. New Magic is not so much like that. There's almost always something you can be doing. So, like, I'm not saying this is a bad ability. It just it doesn't really add much to the card. It adds a little bit of power, but, like, I mean, you can give it trample or something. Like, there's a lot of ways you can add power without. It just feels a little tacked on, and it doesn't. I don't really see the flavor in it necessarily. Like, if you want to represent him like breathing fire, give him fire breathing. You know, pay 1 red to give him 1 more attack or something. But you know, I'm not saying it's wrong to have this on here. It's just awkward, and your card design will probably be stronger if you either just completely remove this clause, or you make it something else. Like, if you want to make this card stronger, make it give it trample, for example. All right, that's an easy way. Give menace maybe. There's first strike. I don't know. There's a lot of ways you can go about that. So, and then the protection from vehicles is kind of odd. Like, here's the thing. Like, this is sort of in the same vein as this. It's like, okay, yeah, he has protection from vehicles. That's fine. It's not wrong to do that. It's just strange and a little awkward. And when you look at this card, you're like, why does he have protection from vehicles? Like, okay, haste, sure. Foxes are fast. I get it. He comes in, deals 7 damage. Sure. I mean, look at this thing. He like breathes fire or something. There's something going on with fire anyway. Like, I can dig that. But, like, protection from vehicles, it's like, it's just a little strange. It doesn't really, it doesn't really fit exactly the flavor of the card, I would think. Now, if you're trying to create flavor with this ability, then what I suggest you do, so, like, okay, if you're trying to say something about this card, as in, like, this fox in the story, somehow he, destroys vehicles or something, like, he hates vehicles, I don't know. Then I suggest you either find art that exemplifies that, or you add some flavor text to sort of make it make sense. Right now, it just looks very awkward, and it's also like, it's like, why? I mean, vehicles are not really a very common type. Again, like, I'll just reiterate, it's not wrong to have this. It just makes the design awkward. So here is my suggested, or here is how I would rework this card if I were to do it. Obviously, it's your card. You can do whatever you want, but this is how I would suggest doing it. So I would say we got our Foxman here, and he costs 6 red, green. Okay. And he's a legendary. To be honest, he doesn't really need to be legendary either. I mean, creature. Okay, we'll make him legendary because he's maybe an important character, right? So we'll say legendary creature. Hawkeye Fox, okay? And then we'll say, I'm gonna go trample, haste. When Hellmaru enters the battlefield, it deals 7 damage to target creature an opponent controls. There you go. I mean, this is a much simpler card than what you've got going on here, but it's just a much smoother design, I think. There's nothing wrong with being with simplicity. I mean, sure, on the flip side, this certainly is a much more generic card. It's a much more. I mean, this card is certainly not generic, right? It's got things on here like protection from vehicles and this red thing, or the creatures pinging. It's just they don't seem to fit. And you know, when you're trying to create something that's somewhat unique, it still needs to make sense on a card, and it still needs to kind of work with the design. So, you know, perhaps you do something like this, and then you add some sort of additional thing on here. You know, think about foxes and you know, what can you do with a fox? Or what you know, what if you're trying to give it an ability, use the fact that he's like a hell fox as your inspiration, right? I guess is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, anyway, that's kind of what I think about this card. You know, certainly not, like, there's nothing about this card other than this timing issue that I mentioned. There's nothing about this card that's particularly wrong. It's just a little bit of an awkward design. So I suggest sort of fine-tuning this one if you're interested. And the super type, yeah, that too. So if I had to give this one a rating, and this is another one of those cards where, like, you know, if this card was like this, I would probably rate it a 7. You know, I mean, that's about as high as like a generic card can probably get, I would think. This is a generic design, not yours necessarily. But with your current one, it has quite like I said, it has quite a few issues, and it's a little awkward, and so I think I have to give it a 6 out of 10. But again, this is another one that has, you know, you're getting there. You have potential. You just need to sort of really think about your designs, and you know, the thing that I find kind of the thing that kind of throws me off a little bit is I know you're really into writing the stories for these sets, and I think that's really cool. And in fact, a lot of the little blips that I've heard about the stories, like in the flavor text, for example, in some of the cards, or there's certain card designs that I've seen of you that I'm like really interested in. Like there, I can't remember the name of it, but there's that like girl that turns into a cyborg, and she's like a girl that's being experimented on or something. Like, that's what you really, really want for in order to get story across. You need let me start over because I'm kind of rambling here. So, in games in general, if you want to tell a story, you need to tell it through the gameplay. Okay. That's, you know, people don't like cutscenes necessarily unless they're, you know, exciting. People don't like expository cutscenes. Let me put it that way, right? They don't like cutscenes where people tell you the story. They don't like reading, you know, text. Some people do, I guess, but those people are few and far between, right? Some people don't like to most people don't like to sit there and read the story on screen. They want the story to happen as they play the game. They want to feel the story. They want to live the story, right? That's the whole point of that. That's what makes games different from movies and books, is you can live the story. Now I'm talking about
games in general. With card games, it's a little bit more difficult, right? Because you can't tell a story sequentially like you can in a video game or a movie or a book. But what you can do is, and Wizards does a really good job of this, is you can put little pieces of the story into your cards, right? You can do that either by either through flavor, right? Like or through flavor text. So you can have little pieces of the story on flavor text. Often Wizards combines those things, right? They make cards like just off the top of my head, if you think about Amonkhet, they had a card where Liliana, in the story of Amonkhet, Liliana saves the day by resurrecting a bunch of zombies, and they literally made a card that does that and then also has the flavor text on it that sort of tells you what's going on, right? And that's the only reason I know anything about the lore of Amonkhet, because I don't generally read Magic lore. And in fact, I never read Magic lore, right? But I do sort of get the story ideas because they sort of like put them on little sprinkle them around the cards, and a lot of their cards tell a story, right? So that's I don't see a lot of that on your cards. I've seen it on some, and it's very promising because, again, some of those cards I got really excited about. Again, especially this girl. That's the one that I keep coming back to. Is you had this like creature, this little girl who is like being experimented on, and then at some point she like flips into like a cyborg, like a cyborg assassin or something like that, right? That's cool because that tells me a story, and like I'm like, all right, I like this, I get it. She's a little girl. She got experimented on. She flips into a cyborg. She grows up into a cyborg. This is the result of the experimentation. That's really cool, right? But when I look at Hellmaru here, it's like I don't know. I mean, he's a fox from hell. That's about all I know about this card. And even the abilities outside of this middle one here don't necessarily contribute a lot to that. So I hope I made myself clear, and I'm not trying to rip on you. What I'm trying to say is, I think your stories are cool. I would love to see them shown off on the cards more, right? That's kind of what I'm trying to say. So anyway, I've talked long enough. This one's a 6 out of 10. Thank you guys for watching.